You just go straight to the podium. No, right here. Yeah.
Good. Good morning. I'm Catherine McKenna, Minister of Infrastructure and Communities and Member of Parliament for Ottawa Centre. I'd like to welcome you to the beautiful Dominion Arboretum on the Central Experimental Farm in my riding of Ottawa Centre. We're located on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. This amazing urban farm has been the focus of scientific exploration since 1886. 5 years ago today, I was in Paris with the Prime Minister representing Canada in international climate negotiations. Les Canadiens devraient être fiers du leadership dont nous avons fait preuve
proud of the leadership we have demonstrated to contribute to the achievement of the Paris Agreement, an ambitious agreement, where for the first time, all the countries in the world have accepted to do their share to fight climate change.
Over the past 5 years, we've continued to demonstrate leadership here at home, working with provinces, territories, Indigenous peoples, and with Canadians. We've always said we need to take additional climate action, and that's why I'm very excited to be here today. Climate action is about good jobs, Canadian innovation, clean air and water, more inclusive communities, and, most of all, a better future for our kids. And if we take the same approach to the climate crisis as we are to COVID-19, showing urgency, focus, science-based decisions, working together across borders, and focusing on the planet we want for everyone, we'll win the race against climate change too. Je suis très heureuse à passer la parole au ministre Guilbeault,
I'm delighted
leader
to
fort en matière
give the
d'environnement,
floor to Minister
un collègue
Guilbeault, who is a leader with regard to the environment. He's also a wonderful colleague, and he's someone who has brought his expertise to our climate and clean growth plan. Thank you.
I'm just vertically challenged. Bonjour, merci beaucoup, Catherine.
Thank you very much, Catherine. That's very kind of you. Thank you to everyone for being here. I'd like to start by saying that we're on the traditional unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe land. I won't say much today because our actions will speak for themselves.
I joined this team because I strongly believe that we needed to do more to address climate change. It's a team effort, and this vision is fully shared by my colleagues who are just as concerned about this issue as I am, who are just as motivated and as determined to act. Les Canadiennes et les Canadiens nous ont élus avec une véritable
Canadians elected us for a specific concern, that is the environment, particularly the people in my riding who I'd like to greet. And today we're taking concrete steps. We will have the means to meet our ambitions. As with the COVID-19 pandemic, we will also listen to what science has to say about solving climate change. And we will fight together against climate change as we are doing for the pandemic. Businesses, communities, and various agreements will help us do so.
By building on our strength, and most importantly, by making a place for everyone in this transition, from transportation to housing to energy to industry. We are listening to science to avoid the worst risks caused by this global crisis. Les changements climatiques sont la plus grande menace pour notre santé et notre économie.
Climate change is the biggest threat for our health and for our economy, but they also represent an enormous opportunity. The plan we're announcing today will allow us to create 2 million sustainable jobs in the
il est
future.
fréquemment question de dette dans le discours
Talking of the
public ces
future,
jours-ci,
there's
mais
a
on
lot
parle
of
trop
talk
peu
of
souvent
public
de la
debt
dette
today.
écologique.
But we
Les coûts de
rarely hear
l'inaction
talk of
écologique
the
seraient immenses et
ecological
légués à nos
damages.
enfants et nos petits-enfants, sans
Ecological
parler
damages
des
would
coûts
be an
inestimables
enormous
reliés à la
legacy
perte de
for our
biodiversité
children.
et à la santé
And we
qui n'ont
haven't even
simplement
mentioned the
pas
loss
de
of
prix.
biodiversity
At the end of
that has no
2020, an
price.
exceptionally difficult year, we are doing what is necessary to take care of ourselves and the planet. We are doing what is needed to move full force ahead in the energy transition, to give ourselves a better future. And I'm confident that this will allow us to look forward with confidence. Pour conclure, il y a quelques années,
To
j'ai
conclude,
pu
a few
collaborer
years
avec la
ago,
nation
I was
CRI sur la
able to
question des changements
collaborate with the
climatiques.
CRI nation on
Et
the
en
question of
reconnaissance de
climate
cette
change.
collaboration,
In
le grand
recognition
chef du Grand
of this
Conseil des CRI de
partnership,
l'époque, Matthew
the
Kunkam,
Grand
m'a remis une
Chief
paire
at
de
the
raquettes
time,
en
Matthew
disant,
Kunkam,
dans
gave
l'espoir
me
que
a
nous
pair
puissions
of
encore les utiliser.
snowshoes, saying,
Ces
I hope
raquettes
we'll
se
still be
trouvent
able to
maintenant dans mon
use them.
bureau ici à
These
Ottawa,
snowshoes are
et je suis
now in
fier
my Ottawa
qu'aujourd'hui, nous
office, and
franchissons
I'm
un pas
proud today
immense vers
to say
l'atteinte de
that we
cet
are making
objectif.
an enormous
Thank you
stride
very
towards
much.
reaching
I
our
would now like to
objective.
turn the floor over to my esteemed colleague, Minister Jonathan Wilkinson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bon après-midi. COVID-19 has been a consuming preoccupation, and for that reason, it certainly can be difficult, I know, to concentrate on challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. None is bigger than climate change. And as we build back from the pandemic, our mandate from Canadians is to do this in a way that helps them to achieve both their environmental expectations and their economic ambitions. The clean growth economy is not some utopian idea of something that might happen far off into the future. It is a rapidly accelerating reality. The biggest companies in the world, the leading investors in the world, dozens of countries, hundreds of cities, and many millions of consumer transactions are pushing us in the same direction. Nations around the world are being active and creative in their efforts to attract investment that will create jobs that will thrive in a low-carbon economy. Movement has been brisk in Europe, in China, and imminently the world's largest economy just to the south of us will set a new course designed to make America a clean energy and clean technology winner. We should all be allies in the fight against climate change because climate knows no boundaries. But we are competitors in the race to seize the economic opportunities presented by this drive to reduce emissions. Canadians are very clear, I think, in their desire. They do not want our country to be left behind. They are clear that their leaders cannot put their heads in the sand and try to pretend that this change is not happening. They are expecting their governments to help propel change with smart policies to make adaptation easier, to promote agility, and to put our best game on the ice. Canada can be an investment destination of choice for low-carbon solutions that meet our climate responsibilities. But this requires thoughtful choices, and it requires a sense of urgency. This morning, I am very pleased to present to you a healthy environment and a healthy economy. Canada's plan to take climate action and help Canadians build the economy they want and the economy they need for the 21st century. With this plan, Canadians will exceed our 2030 greenhouse gas emissions reduction target under the Paris Agreement. We will establish the building blocks to achieve net zero by 2050, and we will create long-term and sustainable communities in every region of this country. The plan presented today will give new momentum to the pan-Canadian Clean Growth and Climate Change Plan developed with Canadians nearly 5 years ago. This plan will do more to reduce pollution, more than any other plan in our history. Our government's plan, a healthy environment and a healthy economy, will allow us to exceed our greenhouse gas emission reductions and will allow us to attract investments and create good long-term jobs. This plan focuses on fighting greenhouse gas emissions in all sectors of the economy. There are substantial new investments in the plan. Some were announced in the Canada Infrastructure Growth Plan and in the Fall Economic Statement. Additional investments being announced today include funding for retrofitting community buildings, support for the production of low-carbon fuels such as hydrogen and biofuels, partnering with large emitters to drive investments in low-carbon processes, continuing to advance smart renewable energy, continuing to advance the rebate program for light-duty zero-emission vehicles, and supporting clean technology in our agricultural sector. In total, the financial commitments made to begin implementation of this plan amount to $15 billion. This is in addition to the $60 billion committed to implement the Pan-Canadian framework. Beyond new investments, Canadians instinctively know it should not be free to pollute in this country. A carbon pricing system that rises over the long term provides clear market signals that encourage business, investors, and individuals to make smart, low-carbon choices. Part of the plan will continue to put an increased price on pollution through 2030 and return the proceeds back to households in a way that leaves a majority of Canadian families better off. And starting as early as 2022, those rebates will be received quarterly rather than once per year. Beyond investments and pollution pricing, this plan includes a large number of additional regulatory and program measures that are outlined in the documents that have been published today.
Some of these planned measures will require consultation to ensure that they are designed as efficiently as possible. These consultations with Canadians will start immediately. Together, we will work with provinces and territories to develop their jurisdiction so that we can increase our global level of ambition. This plan will allow us to create thousands of jobs, good jobs, across the country to exceed our 2030 goals and to lay the foundations for net zero emissions by 2050.
Largely as a result of my concern about the environmental crisis that is climate change and my belief that Canada needed to have a thoughtful economic strategy that would ensure our continued prosperity in a low-carbon future. I was concerned about these issues as a citizen of this country and a citizen of this planet, but perhaps I was most concerned about these issues as the father of 2 young daughters. This is a plan for all of us, but it is perhaps a plan that is of particular importance to Canada's youth. This is about ensuring that a sustainable and a prosperous future is one that is attainable for them. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Hello, everyone. Bonjour à tous. This is a good day for our planet. It's a good day for Canadians. Thank you, Jonathan, for that introduction and for your outstanding work as Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Catherine, we're lucky to have you on the team, and thank you for welcoming us into your riding to the Dominion Arboretum. Et merci, Stephen, pour tout ton travail.
And thank you, Stephen, for all your work and your devotion.
A year ago today, the holiday season was well underway. We all saw each other regularly at work or around town, and people were planning to spend time with loved ones during their well-deserved break. Not everything was perfect, obviously. Nothing ever is. But Canadians felt optimistic about 2020. No one had even heard of COVID-19. Well, things have been tough in the year since, and these holidays will be different. But there is reason to hope as we look towards 2021. On Wednesday, Health Canada approved the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine as safe and effective. Canada has already secured up to 76 million doses of this vaccine. We're expecting 30,000 doses to start arriving next week, with a total of almost 250,000 doses before the end of December. We also have 6 other agreements for potential vaccines, 3 of which are currently under review by regulators. We've reserved enough doses so that every Canadian who wants a vaccine will be able to get it before the end of 2021. Vaccinations will help end the pandemic. But right now, our fight against COVID-19 is far from over. Again this week, far too many provinces reported record highs in cases and hospitalizations. These numbers must go down. Earlier today, Dr. Tam and Dr. New presented new models. The projections show that if we maintain the current number of people with whom each of us are in contact, the numbers will continue to surge, and we could reach over 12,000 new cases a day in January. There is no other way. We must reduce our in-person contacts right now. A vaccine in a week or in a month won't help you if you get COVID-19 today. So my message to Canadians is simple. Hold tight and don't give up. We know how to make it through long, cold winters, and we're going to do that once again. Together with the provinces and territories and Indigenous partners, our government is doing everything we can to roll out vaccines as quickly as possible. In the meantime, I'm asking everyone to continue to follow local public health guidelines. It's really important that we think of our frontline health workers, doctors, nurses, support staff in hospitals and care centers around the country who've been working incredibly hard in difficult situations throughout the past number of months, who are, like us, looking at a long and difficult winter. The things we, each of us, can do every day to reduce the number of contacts we have, to avoid gatherings, to wear masks, to make sure we're doing our part to get through this coming holiday season and through this winter in the best possible situation, so that as vaccines start to roll out massively in the spring, we can get back to normal as quickly as possible, is going to be really, really important. We will get through this if we all do our part and work together. Comme vous le savez, mercredi, Santé Canada a
As you
approuvé
know,
le
on
vaccin
Wednesday,
de
Health Canada approved the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. The first doses should arrive in the coming days. We are getting ready to roll out the biggest immunization campaign in the history of Canada. This is a process that requires teamwork. Everything is planned to make it as efficient as possible. Just yesterday, during the 23rd First Ministers' meeting, there was discussion of vaccine distribution and the measures that will take to continue to slow down the pandemic. The federal government has been there since the beginning of this crisis to support the provinces and territories, and we are going to continue to do so in the weeks and months to come. We will also be continuing to support families, directly, that is, workers and businesses through various aid programs. Already, more than 130,000 small businesses have asked for the additional help provided with the Canadian Emergency Business Account for businesses. We must continue to heed local health authorities' guidance and reduce our contacts with others. Hold tight, continue to do what we've been doing since the very beginning. I know it's not easy. I know it's very, very difficult to hang in there. We know that vaccines are on the way. Yes, winter will be difficult. Yes, we will still have to make sacrifices for our loved ones, for seniors, for frontline health workers. But we will do this. We will arrive at a better spring, a better summer. Our frontline workers, doctors, nurses, long-term health care, long-term care home workers are becoming exhausted. They need our help. They need everyone to do their part to reduce the number of contacts they have, to avoid gatherings, and to wear masks to maintain social distancing and get through this winter. Winter is always a busy time for Canadian hospitals. They should never become overloaded and overwhelmed during this difficult time. We will continue to do our part, and together we can get through this. Today, I can also confirm that Canada and the U.S. have agreed to extend the border measures already in place for another 30 days. That is, until January 21st. This decision will help protect people on both sides of the border.
In moments we're living today, we are all grateful for science. We thank researchers and scientists for their hard work. We trust them and we listen to them. But let's remember that science is not a pick-and-choose buffet. If we trust scientists with our health, as we do, then we must also trust their research and their expertise when it comes to other existential threats. And that includes climate change. There is no vaccine against a polluted planet. It's up to us to act, because there is a real cost to pollution. We're paying the price already with record storms, wildfires, floods, and heat waves, which all carry real economic costs and real risks to our health. The previous government talked about climate targets, but didn't take real action to meet them. We chose a different approach, getting straight to work on cutting pollution. In 2016, our government, along with provinces, territories, and Indigenous leaders, presented the Pan-Canadian Framework on Clean Growth and Climate Change. This plan included putting a price on pollution everywhere across the country, phasing out coal-fired electricity, and investing in clean technology, among many other measures. It was Canada's first ever national climate plan, and we've been working every day since to continue implementing it. Well, today, the world continues to change. Tomorrow will mark the 5th anniversary of the Paris Agreement, which was created to fight climate change and accelerate actions for a sustainable future. Just last month, we tabled our net zero legislation to make it law. Canadians want to do more to fight climate change while building a stronger economy for our kids and grandkids. Clean technology presents enormous opportunities for economic growth and jobs, and Canadians aren't alone in realizing that. By early next year, countries representing over 65% of global emissions and more than 70% of the world economy will have made ambitious commitments to carbon neutrality. With global consumers and investors alike demanding and rewarding climate action, our trading partners and economic competitors are in this race. Like us, they know that the cleaner your economy, the faster and stronger it will grow. There is no time to waste, no time to hesitate, not for our planet and not for our economy. The world is moving. We need a plan that gets Canada ahead, because without it, we'll fall behind. That's why today we are announcing Canada's new, strengthened climate plan, a healthy environment and a healthy economy. To accelerate our efforts, we're investing $15.2 billion through this plan, with more to come. Les Canadiens savent qu'on ne peut pas ralentir notre lutte.
Canadians know that we can't slow down in our fight against climate change. And quite the opposite. Now is the time to ramp up our efforts to create sustainable jobs and a safe environment for all. During the last election campaign, you asked us to do more, and today we are responding to your demand with a concrete plan. Our new plan, a healthy environment and a healthy economy, will help us increase our efforts thanks to investments that represent $15.2 billion. With more to come. Our government has promised to surpass the Paris targets announced 5 years ago, and that's exactly what we'll do with this plan. At the same time, we will set new, even more ambitious targets for the years to come. To do so, we'll work and collaborate with all our public and private sector partners to build a Canada that is more sustainable, stronger, and more prosperous for all.
Our plan will improve the energy efficiency of homes and buildings to cut energy waste while also helping people cut down on their bills. It will support sustainable food and farming practices. And it will make clean power available across the country, including in remote and Indigenous communities, while investing in clean and affordable transportation, including public transit and zero-emission vehicles. Come January, I look forward to announcing our plan for permanent public transit funding. This plan is about what we can do for families, workers, and industry. Starting in 2023, we will put even more money in the pockets of Canadians by increasing the price on pollution by $15 a tonne per year. At the same time, we will help businesses create and export low-carbon, made-in-Canada products, services, and technologies. Climate-resilient projects are not just good for the planet, they're good for workers and businesses. Look no further than the Ford Oakville plant, which is retooling to make electric vehicles, securing thousands of middle-class jobs. We knew this project would be good for workers and the environment alike, and that's why our government invested to make it possible. For heavy industries like steel or aluminum, there is tremendous opportunity for clean growth. We need to help them decarbonize to remain competitive. Momentum is building around the globe for job-creating projects in all kinds of sectors. And with our skilled workers, know-how, and resources, Canada is well positioned to become a world leader. As Canadians, we get why this matters. We have the longest coastline in the world and a third of the world's boreal forests. We know that working with nature instead of against it is a win-win. That's why measures like planting 2 billion trees while better managing and conserving natural spaces are also crucial to our plan. We don't have to choose between protecting the environment and growing the economy. They go hand in hand. During the campaign, our government committed to exceed Canada's existing 2030 climate target and support new jobs for Canadians. Today, we are delivering on our plan to reach that goal. At the same time, we are laying out new, more ambitious targets for the coming years. Canada will continue to lead in the fight against climate change. Les investissements et les mesures liées à notre nouveau plan
Our plan's new investments and measures to fight climate change will result in the creation of good jobs and help grow the middle class. Whether you are an auto or aluminum sector worker, an urban planner or an engineer, a student or already on the work in the job market, the transition towards a cleaner economy will present new opportunities for you. When Canada is competitive internationally, it's Canadians, all Canadians, who benefit. We have an economy to rebuild, and we have citizens to protect. Are we going to learn then from the past and understand that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure? Are we going to choose a more resilient economy in the long term? The answer is yes, and yes. We are making the choice to invest today so that our children can continue to breathe clean air tomorrow.
And together, we have a choice to make. A year ago, we didn't know the challenges that 2020 and this pandemic would bring. But what we did know, and what we've known for a while now, was the existential threat posed by climate change. Let's tackle this challenge by rebuilding and growing the economy with good, reliable jobs. We still have a lot of work ahead, But with plans like this, plans to protect our communities and grow the economy, with vaccines on the way, there's reason to feel optimistic for 2021 and for the future. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Prime Minister. We'll now open the floor to media. We'll start with the phones. One question, one follow-up. Operator.
Thank you. Merci. Première question, l'inaudible, la presse canadienne.
First question from the Canadian press. Go ahead. Question. Hello, Mr. Trudeau. You said once again that there will be even more ambitious targets. I'd like you to explain this. What exactly do you mean? Why are you waiting to announce them? Answer. We are announcing today the concrete plan to exceed our 2030 targets, as we promised during the election campaign last year. This demonstrates how much we will be there to exceed the current targets. At the same time, we will be presenting new ambitious targets for 2030. We'll be working with our partners across the country, including provinces and territories, to meet these targets in the future. Follow-up question. Perhaps I didn't understand. What are these new targets? I don't see them when I read what I've received on the subject. So I'd like to know. Also, I'd like to go back to yesterday and your First Minister's meeting. I'd like to understand the timeline. You're announcing something that has nothing to do with COVID-19. But what about this discussion of healthcare transfers? Are you waiting until the end of the pandemic? Answer. The targets for the year to come will be more ambitious. We're talking about between 32 and 40% of greenhouse gas emissions as of 2025. That's exactly what we'll be putting in place to exceed our 2030 targets and into the future. As regard to the pandemic and the situation across the country, I was very happy with the discussion with the premiers last night. We established concrete measures for our seniors to invest in long-term care homes, to work on the digital shift that's taking place in our healthcare system right now. At the same time, we understand that the pandemic brings billions of dollars of more spending, new spending for the healthcare systems. I assure the provinces that we will be there for them during this pandemic. And obviously, I also ensure the provinces that we will be there to increase Canada Health transfers in the long term. But of course, this is a discussion that must take place once we have a little bit more clarification on what our long-term will look like. We are still facing this pandemic right now. We're still concentrating our efforts on this pandemic. But of course, discussions on fiscal balance in the future will be held. Next question.
Thank you. Merci. Next question, Alex Ballingal, Toronto Star. Line open.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for taking, or good afternoon, I guess. Thanks for taking my question. Obviously, it looks like this plan hinges a lot on the carbon price increase or relies on the increase of the carbon price to exceed the 2030 target. But what happens if the Supreme Court rules that that policy is unconstitutional?
We know that Canadians understand that it can no longer be free to pollute anywhere in the country. That's why we move forward with putting a price on pollution right across the country. Unfortunately, as you point out, there are some jurisdictions that still don't understand that the only way to build a strong economy for the future is to protect the environment at the same time. There are some places in this country that still want to make pollution free again. Well, we're not going to do that. We are continuing to move forward and doing so by putting more money in the pockets of Canadian families, by increasing the price on pollution as we move forward to make sure that there is a clear signal to businesses, to investors, to Canadians, and to the world that Canada is serious, not just about fighting climate change, but about the tremendous economic opportunities that will come with moving towards a cleaner future. Nous savons que malheureusement, il y a encore des juridictions à travers le pays qui veulent
Answer repeated in
rendre la
French. We know
pollution
that there are
gratuite.
still
Mais
jurisdictions
je
across the
sais
country that
aussi
want
que les
pollution to be
Canadiens
free.
savent
But
qu'on
I
ne
know that
devrait pas permettre
Canadians
que la pollution
do
soit
not
gratuite
want
nulle part
pollution
au
to be
pays.
free
Nous allons
anywhere
continuer
in the country. We are going to
d'augmenter
continue to
le prix
increase
sur la pollution en
the,
s'assurant qu'on donne encore plus d'argent
the price on pollution
Canadiens,
and give more
et aux
money
familles.
back to Canadians and families.
S'il y a des premiers ministres qui continuent de
If
refuser
there are premiers
d'accepter
who
que
continue
le
to
seul plan
refuse
pour
to
l'avenir de
accept that the
l'économie, c'est
only
un plan
plan for the
aussi pour
future of
protéger
the economy
l'environnement,
is
soit.
the future
Mais
that includes
nous allons
is one that
s'assurer
includes
que
the
partout
future
au
of the
Canada,
environment.
la
Well, we are
pollution
going to
n'est plus
ensure that
gratuite.
across Canada, pollution
Follow-up,
is
Alex?
no longer free.
Yeah, just to ask again, I guess, what happens if you can't do that? The Supreme Court says the federal government can't impose a national minimum carbon price on the provinces. Is this plan essentially deep six and you have to go back to the drawing board? What happens if you can't do it?
We know that Canadians understand that we need to put a price on pollution, and we're actually returning even more money into the pockets of Canadians' families with that. We know the Supreme Court and the courts will do their work, but there is no question that the political disagreement between those who think we should make pollution free again, and those of us who know that the only way towards a stronger economy is by fighting climate change and preparing for the innovations of the future, are going to stay focused on exactly that goal.
Thank you. Next question, please, operator.
Thank you. Merci. Prochaine question, Mélanie
Next
Marquis,
question,
La Presse.
La Presse.
Merci. Bonjour, M. Trudeau. Quelles
Question.
sont
Thank you, Mr.
vos
Trudeau.
intentions plus précises par rapport au
What are your
Québec et donc à
exact
sa bourse
ambitions
carbone?
for Quebec and its carbon market?
Le Québec a une taxe sur le carbone?
Quebec has a
Le
carbon
Québec,
tax.
depuis longtemps, a
Answer.
démontré
For a long
un vrai
time now,
leadership en
Quebec has
matière
truly been a leader with
prix sur la
regard
pollution.
to
Leur
pricing
système,
pollution.
est très
The Quebec
robuste et
system is
ambitieux,
very
et nous
strong
allons
and very
continuer de
ambitious,
travailler avec
and we'll
eux.
continue to work
Mais
with
non, on n'a
Quebec.
pas besoin
But
d'imposer quoi que
we
ce soit au
don't need to
Québec parce
impose
que le
anything
leadership
on
du
Quebec
Québec en
because
matière de
Quebec's
lutte contre le
leadership when
changement
it comes to
climatique
climate
est
change
bien comprise
is
et bien évidente
very
et continuera
obvious,
pour bien des années à
and it
venir.
will continue for many years to come.
Une suivi, madame?
Follow-up question?
Oui, pour toujours en matière environnementale.
Still with
en
regard to
juin,
the environment,
dernier, votre
last June,
ancienne ministre d'Environnement, Mme McKenna,
your
je
former
cite,
environment
le
minister,
plan est
Ms.
de ne pas
McKenna,
augmenter
said
le
the
prix
plan
au-delà de
is to not
2022, donc l'année
increase
à laquelle
the
le
price
prix à la tonne
beyond
était à 50
2022.
Qu'est-ce qui a
At the
changé
time, the
entre
price was
juin
$50 a
2019
ton.
et
What's
le 11
changed
décembre 2020?
between that
J'ai
and
toujours dit
today?
il y allait avoir
Answer.
des
I've
élections
always said that there
avant
will be elections
d'augmenter le prix sur le carbone en 2023 et
before the
évidemment dans un gouvernement
price
minoritaire
is
on peut
increased
très
in
bien comprendre qu'il
2023.
va y avoir des
And of course,
élections
we're in a
avant de
minority
voir
situation. We can understand that there will be elections
la
before
pollution en 2023. Je suis
pollution
certain
pricing
qu'il va
will be
y avoir des
increased in
partis avec
2023.
des propositions
I'm sure there will be
environnementales
parties that come up
bien
with
moins
environmental
ambitieuses, mais
proposals that are
nous
less ambitious
démontrons à
than
quel
ours.
point le
But
signal
we
est
want to
fort
show
pour
how
les
strong
investisseurs,
the signal
pour les
is for
entreprises et pour tous
investors,
les
for
Canadiens,
businesses, and
que
for
nous allons
all
continuer
Canadians. We are
d'augmenter
going
notre
to
ambition
continue
pour les
to
années à
be
venir, parce qu'on
ambitious
sait
for the years
que
to come,
l'avenir, pas
because
seulement de
we
notre
know that
planète,
not
mais des
only
emplois
our
de nos
planet's
enfants et de nos
future,
petits-enfants,
but the future of
compte,
jobs
sur
for
de l'action
the future of our
concrète,
children and our
réelle
grandchildren
maintenant, et c'est ce qu'on
is
annonce aujourd'hui.
concrete, is a reality already, and that's
Prime
why
Minister
we are
Mike
making
Whitaker
these
with Global
announcements today.
National. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned in your remarks that climate change does need buy-in from all Canadians, and you also made mentions of premiers who still believe that it should be free to pollute. So I want to ask you, how do you get those conservative premiers, especially, on board? Do you sense any movement on the part of premiers, conservatives, and business as climate data starts to mount?
First of all, I will highlight that business investors and companies right across the country have understood the economic opportunities of doing more to fight climate change. Indeed, when you look at clean tech investments across this country from the private sector, 75% of all investments come from oil and gas companies. Canadians know The future is in fighting climate change and protecting our environment while we grow the economy. Businesses know the opportunities and the revenues and the growth that are going to come from having a strong plan to fight climate change. And indeed, we're beginning to see more and more conservative premiers are starting to understand that as well. And I don't imagine that it's because I've suddenly convinced them. What I think is starting to convince them is global investors, is people who are looking at whether or not a jurisdiction or a company has a plan to lower their carbon emissions, to move forward on fighting climate change. That's something that we've heard a number of premiers talk about increasingly, the international economic pressures to draw in investment and demonstrate leadership on climate change. And I know that Canadians are beginning to understand right across the country of all political backgrounds that you cannot have a plan for the future of the economy if you don't have a plan to fight climate change.
Bonjour, Monsieur Trudeau. Laurence Martin, Radio-Canada.
Laurence Martin, Radio-Canada. Question. You've been in power for more than 5 years now, but we're not even close to reaching our 30% reduction by 2030. Why should we believe you today? Answer. We are close to reaching our 2030 target. We're on the way. Of course, there's still a lot of work to be done. We have to make up for lost time that we lost for years when the work was not to be done to fight climate change, when previous governments did not do the work. We've also had to prepare the ground, do the groundwork, because of certain provinces' decision to reduce their climate change measures. But we now have a concrete plan. This will help us not only reach our 2030 targets, but exceed them. We will also have new ambitious targets to continue to show leadership to Canadians.
Hello, Mr. Prime Minister. Grace Najikoti with CTV National News. Was there any negotiations with the provinces regarding the price of the carbon tax before this announcement? Did you talk to the provinces regarding this and the premiers?
We know that the initial movement on the pan-Canadian framework on fighting climate change was done in partnership with the provinces and with Indigenous leaders. This plan for a healthy environment and a healthy economy was developed for the federal government. We look forward to working with the provincial governments and all Canadians as we move forward. But on the increase on price and pollution, there is a process in place that I think Jonathan can say a couple of words to. Jonathan.
Certainly, as the Prime Minister said, the pricing proposal is a proposal. We will be reaching out to discuss with provinces and territories going forward. Certainly, we have had conversations with provinces and territories, and there is a review process of the pricing system that's underway right now. That certainly will be informative in the conversations that we have with them. And you know, we've been very clear as a government that our view is that the price on pollution is the most efficient way to reduce emissions, that incents innovation, and it is a critical part of the plan going forward. All of the provinces and territories are aware of that, and that conversation will continue. Pardon? Oui. Nous avons les conversations avec les provinces et les territoires sur le prix sur la pollution.
On the pricing proposal on pollution. Of course, there's a process to study
le prix sur la pollution qui existe maintenant.
The price on pollution. It's already there is already this process in place.
Produit cette plan, nous avons
We've
dit que
produced this
ça c'est le prix sur la pollution, c'est a proposal, a federal proposal.
This price on pollution is a federal proposal. Of course, we'll be discussing with provinces and territories in the coming weeks, in the coming months. But of course, this is a very important plan. We know that pricing pollution is the most effective measure. And we also need to be innovative and grow our economy.
As to when you'll have those discussions with the provinces?
Well, certainly I've been talking to some of my counterparts over the last 24 hours, and what I've said to all of them is we should start those conversations next week and the week after. Those are conversations that are important. I mean, part of what we are trying to do here is the measures that actually are in the model that we have developed are things that have been funded to date in terms of federal work. We obviously intend to look at doing more. The Prime Minister mentioned the permanent public transit funding, but we're also looking for the provinces to step up their level of ambition. This needs to be a national project, both from an economic and an environmental perspective, and we will be looking to have conversations with the provinces about how we can collectively do more.
David Thurton, CBC News. A question about vaccines, Prime Minister. We're hearing that the NHL is looking at purchasing shots for their teams. Have you had any conversations with the NHL about this?
No, obviously there are many companies and organizations that are looking with interest at vaccines. What I can assure Canadians is our contracts are strong and are focused on getting vaccines for free out to all Canadians. The priority is, of course, vulnerable Canadians and specific groups. Nothing any private company or organization can negotiate, if they choose to do so, will in any way impact or slow down the delivery of vaccines to Canadians for free, with vulnerable Canadians at the front of that line.
I want to ask you about the two Michaels, just given that they are still in custody. Can you just tell us, do you want their promised national security trial that China has promised, do you want that to be open for our diplomatic staff to be able to be there to view it? And as well, is there a timeline in your mind about when that has China explained to you about when that is actually going to happen?
What we want is for the two Michaels to be returned home. They have been in arbitrary detention in very difficult conditions for 2 years now. They were arbitrarily detained in retaliation for Canada living up to our rule of law, living up to long-standing international treaties with our closest ally, and it is simply an example of coercive diplomacy. We are working extremely hard to get the two Michaels, Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, home safe as soon as possible. And I can say that we are also extremely well supported by allies near and far around the world who have been consistently speaking up in defense of these two Canadians, both because they support Canada, but also because they too have real concerns about the way China has been using arbitrary detentions and coercive diplomacy to try and reach various ends. The global community stands steadfast in support of these two Michaels, and quite frankly, Canada will continue to do absolutely everything we can to get them home safe.
Thank you, and that concludes today's press conference.